Hey everyone, this is video 1 of week 4. And again, you can listen to this as an audio if you prefer. And it would be best if you read Genesis 18, the text for this week, before you listen to this lecture. Genesis 18 begins with the Lord and his entourage physically appearing to Abraham and his family. And notice that Ishmael and Hagar seem to be oddly missing, as if they weren't there in as part of the story originally. Okay. So this is how the story begins, Genesis 18. Okay. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. And he looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. And he said, "My Lord, if I found favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourself under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourself, and after you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened to the tent of Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So some interesting things to note in this passage. First, notice how Abraham does not seem to originally realize who he's talking to. Okay, so he doesn't recognize as God, okay, or probably an entourage, God's entourage, angels probably, okay. So he doesn't recognize their divine beings, okay. Remember also how I said that trees, I believe in a previous lecture, that trees were kind of transit centers or connectors of the human, heavenly, and underground worlds, okay. And as such, because it kind of trees are kind of these transit centers, you know, theophanies or kind of famous holy people are associated with trees, okay? We have the same thing here in Genesis 18, where God and 2 members, okay, unsurprisingly are found or come through, it's hard to know exactly what's going on, near a transit center, a tree, okay? Oaks in particular were associated with God because they're very strong looking, okay, big trees. Notice also the appearance of 3 beings. Okay, now whenever you see 3 in the Hebrew biblical text, interpreters have tended, especially in church history, to go nuts. Okay, so anytime they see 3, they're like, well, this is a Trinity. I mean, maybe, doubtful, to be honest. More likely there are 3 because there's God and 2 angels who we know will sort of head off after the meal to go towards Sodom and Gomorrah to check out what it's really like. Okay, and really the story in Genesis 18 here is to set the context for the Sodom and Gomorrah narrative that's coming up. Okay. So that's probably why there's 3. Okay. Notice also in this passage the kind of great hospitality, right? Abraham, being a good Middle Easterner, shows hospitality to his guests. Notice how he runs all over the place, preparing a freshly made meal, okay? And then hospitality and things that, you know, how a good Middle Easterner, especially man, should behave. It becomes very important, especially when we consider what happens again in Genesis 19 in the following story, okay? Notice that in this story, the visitors, these kind of divine visitors, eat, okay, which is a very anthropomorphic, human-like vision of God. Usually there's some problems with this. You don't usually see God or angels eating human food. Okay, maybe God does this here because Abraham is so darn special. So we don't know, but it has kind of perturbed people. Okay. Now, after Abraham gets everything ready and he prepares a meal for them, the visitors ask about the whereabouts of Sarah, his wife, which seems to indicate that men and women ate separately. And so though she may be cooking the meal, she's not really seen while the men are partaking of their food. Okay. Indeed, we are told that she has gone back to her tent. Okay. Notice also the kind of subservient portrayal of Abraham, again, part of good hospitality. He is almost sort of watching them eat like a servant. okay, presumably to get whatever they need. The fact that Sarah is presumably in her tent or separated, okay, we don't know how far the separation though from the Eden group, is what makes, this kind of question about where exactly is Sarah. This is what makes what follows in the story both confusing and, as I will try to show, also kind of funny. Okay, so this is Genesis 18:9. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent's entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It has ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time, I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "Oh yeah, you did." It's very strange. Okay. Now we're told that Sarah has been eavesdropping the whole time on the conversation that these men are having while they are eating. Okay. And she seems to be near enough, though she's in her tent, to overhear what they're saying. Okay, because of course we are told that she laughs at the suggestion that she, now at her age, postmenopausal, okay, the way of the one, that she would possibly bear a child. Okay, and Sarah must be nearby enough, not only for her to overhear, but for God also to overhear, because we're told that he hears her laughter and retorts back. Okay, so where the heck is Sarah? Okay, indeed, there's all kinds of confusions here. It's unclear who is talking. Notice that the angels and God kind of slip and slide in their identities. This is not uncommon in the biblical text, or sometimes it's God and or sometimes it's an angel, and the angel will metamorphosize into God and back. Okay, so it's unclear who's talking. Okay, and who is talking to whom, and who says, is an angel supposed to show up later? Is God going to show up later? Who's going to show up later? Okay. Moreover, there's this very strange business where God and Sarah seem to have a little tiff, okay, or a little "yes you did, no I didn't, yes you did" kind of argument, okay. And again, she seems to be nearby to overhear everything, but just out of sight. Okay. If that's the case, then God and Sarah have this weird, yes, no argument, okay, while kind of being right next to each other, but with maybe a tent separating them. Okay. So what is this strange story about? Okay. And the purpose of this passage, you can find it in this word that is repeated from verses 12 and 15. And the word here that's repeated is translated probably in your Bibles as "to laugh." Okay. Notice how these verses keep emphasizing "to laugh." No, you laughed. No, yes, you did. No, you didn't. Okay. The word for laugh in Hebrew is sahak. Okay. And sahak, notice, sounds very much like the name of somebody who is coming up, Yitzhak, okay, or Isaac. Okay, and indeed, Isaac's name means to laugh or to play or to jest or to make fun of, and we'll see in kind of a later video of this week how the biblical writers keep playing with the various meanings and nuances of Isaac's name. Here, the repetition of Sahak, okay, or Yitzhak, okay, the purpose of it seems to be to offer a kind of etiology, an origin tale, to explain why Isaac is called Isaac. Well, why is he called Isaac? Well, it's because of all the laughter from Sarah's disbelief here, okay, that occurred when she was told that she was going to give birth. Okay. Notice also that the story plays on the theme of laughter further by making the scene kind of comedic. Not only is Isaac called, Isaac because his mommy laughed in disbelief, okay, but the entire scene where God and Sarah are depicted as getting into a somewhat juvenile argument while being separated kind of by a tent and without looking at each other directly. I have suspicions that this is supposed to be quite funny, okay? That Sarah either knowingly or unknowingly laughs at God's suggestions and then has the audacity to deny she ever laughed in the first place. And she denies this nearly to God's face, okay, when he is right there and hears her. Again, I think some of this is supposed to come off as humorous. Okay. And as we'll see in the next video, there might be not just this kind of light humor, but also a dark humor, a dark comedic element to the story as well. So for that, please turn to the next video.